Hello everyone and welcome to The Haunted Ride. I'm your host Melissa and I hope that you're having an amazing day. I hope that you also have some tea and some snacks because today's episode is going to be a longer one and a very important one. In this episode, Laura joins me to talk about her time with an entity who made her actually feel oppression. So for those of you who may not know what oppression is not possession. In possession, you are essentially completely taken over by an entity. In oppression, there are moments where you just don't feel yourself. You may suddenly have moments of depression, of anxiety, of panic, when you normally don't. You may also have times where you black out and you don't remember things. And that's actually getting closer to the possession stage. In possession, it happens much more often, and of course, you may also be harming people or completely under what the entity wants you to do. Whereas in oppression, you're still there, but you're kind of losing the battle. Laura came to me about this problem, and I had known something was up with her for quite a couple of months. But while we have a past life relationship, each life is different, and you also have to give people their time and their space to be able to come to you and talk to you about what's going on. If you press them, it doesn't make it any better, especially in moments where you have an entity that's hurting you or that is oppressing you. You can definitely talk with that person, you can try to get them to open up, but they ultimately have to be the one to decide to open up to you. You can't force them to. And that's part of them beginning to win that battle over that entity. But this episode is a little different though, because it is her telling her side of what happened up until the point that she finally let me know what was going on, and then me, what I had noticed in the background up until I finally was told what was going on. So it is a lot more of a conversation than, a sort of clean interview. It's a lot more of us conversing with one another and going, oh my God, wait, that makes so much sense here. Oh, okay, yeah, I noticed this here, but I didn't realize this is what was going on. But I do hope that you guys enjoy the episode. I hope that it teaches you something about entities, about different things that are out there. As we mentioned in this episode, this thing does not have a name. There's no classification for you to put it under. And I think that as we talk about a lot on the show, I don't like labels because then it makes you force something into a box that may not belong there. And this thing just doesn't have a box. And when you're dealing with the spirit worlds and you're dealing with entities and the paranormal, you sometimes run across things that you've never heard before. You never even thought could be possible. And this is just one of those things. So without further ado, we'll get into the episode, and I'll see you guys soon.
This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
This is Edward October for Octoberpod, take 1.
We know a remote farm in Lancaster where Mrs. Buckram lives. Every July, pumpkins grow there. You really mean that?
I think you're reading the wrong script. You're supposed to be telling folk about Octoberpod. Let me get you a copy of the new script.
But that's bad copy. I think it's so nice that you see a snow-covered field and say every July pumpkins grow there.
Ed, what are you looking at? What snow-covered field? This is an audio promo. Edward October for Octoberpod, take 2.
We know of a fjord in Norway, near where the cod gather in great shoals. There, Jorg Tostensen frees the cod, adding a crumb crisp coating. Ooh, that's tough. Crumb crisp coating.
Let's just talk about Octoberpod. You see, Ed, I was thinking...
Ed wasn't drinking!
What? I said thinking. I was thinking we should just talk about your show. You know, Octoberpod? Retro horror for bold individualists? I didn't say anything about drinking.
You didn't say it. He said it.
Who are you talking to?
Your friend.
There's no one else in here. Edward October for Octoberpod, take 3.
This is a lot of shit. You know that, don't you? Now, you want another one on what? Peas?
Stream Octoberpod. Available now on YouTube, Vimeo, Podbean, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, Podchaser, and at octoberpodvhs.com. Octoberpod, retro horror for bold individualists.
What I was thinking was, since you know your side of like what happened and I know like my side of what's been happening and how I've been feeling, but I just like didn't tell you, I think like, why don't you go and start off everything that like happened up until the point like we talked yesterday or Friday, and then I'll do the same thing on my end too, and we can like meet in the middle.
All right, want me to start from like the summer?
Yeah.
I did. I made myself notes because,
Wow.
to be honest, I've had trouble keeping track of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
I feel like, I told you, I felt like I lost time and I was being very forgetful, which was really unlike me.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to say that this actually started, right at the beginning of summer. Not, we were like a month into summer. We'll go there. And I was kind of up for my second trip to the mountains. And I was going up there because I was feeling really cucky to begin with. I felt really drained of energy and I was kind of looking to recenter myself. And I know that place does it for me. And I told you I needed to go. I was like, I really need this.
Mm-hmm.
Things just felt, cucky. I felt slow and sluggish and kind of depressed. And I was losing my interest to do things. And I was trying to draw and create things. And I was having trouble picturing things in my head. I felt almost foggish. So I go up there, feels great as always, but at the same time, I hear Native American Indian voices in my head, and I told you about this, and I thought it was amazing, and I didn't think much of it then. I had other things going on in a spiritual change in my life, which me and you were already dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of overlooked things because I thought they were other things.
Mm-hmm.
I was going through a spiritual change that can be super dramatic.
All right, before you get started, your grandmother was a very formidable woman, wasn't she?
Very much so, yes. People feared her.
So I'm not sure. Your warrior spirit is still like kind of little. So ask your grandmother to come in and kind of like help you.
I think I can do that.
Just to help, because if you get irritated, that like helps you be more formidable, but like your spirit is still crushed a little bit after everything.
Oh, yeah. I mean, today's been exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. As soon as I said I was going to get ready to call you, I started to get a headache and I was like, you know what? I'm not doing this. This is very annoying.
Yeah. And when we were talking earlier, I had a headache and I was just like, oh no, I don't think so.
No, I don't know what this is about and I'm not doing it. I'm very irritated with it and it's making me very angry.
Yeah. Ask your grandmother to come in and ask her just to watch over you so you can get everything out and be calm and help you feel stronger.
Well, I put it out there. I hope she's listening.
Yeah, she is.
Because this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Redonkulous, I tell you. Absolutely redonkulous.
I will say, though, that I actually, like, as weird as it is, I preferred your irritated side to your depressed side.
Oh yeah, I do too. I'd rather have a fire in my belly than be gloomy. I mean, it's not me to begin with. I've always been very spunky.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm okay with that. I've usually been too hyper for most people to handle. And I've never let that bother me. Like some people, oh well, then you just can't handle me. But, oh yeah, the debilitating depression, it was just awful. I did not like it whatsoever. I don't like being shut down like that. No, I mean, nobody does. You don't like that loss of control, but it's your own self-control in a lot of ways, which makes it so much more painful to realize. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I hate that. I'm okay. Like I said, I woke up the other morning and I felt so good. And that has been so long since I felt like that. Mm-hmm. And I rolled with it. I'm not, I feel good and I'm not going to let it go this time. No. And the worst part is, out of all of this, even though, I didn't even say everything yet, is I just wasn't aware. It's one of those lessons where it doesn't matter how much you know, there will always be something that will slip by you.
Yeah.
So, it's a good lesson. I'm never going to forget this lesson. That's for sure. Not at all. But I mean, I never really dealt with anything in the shadow realm before. I mean, I have and I haven't.
Mm-hmm.
I had an experience when I was a teenager, and that was definitely tainted by teenagers playing around.
Mm-hmm.
I've always felt them, but I've never really seen them. And I was okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of just did our own thing. They didn't bother me. I didn't bother them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm one of those people that believe if there can be good people and bad people, there can be good shadows and bad shadows. It's just how it goes, because there are good and bad things in the world. But that also doesn't mean that it's all human either.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm getting a very good lesson in that.
Well,
For
you've
sure.
got a very strong animal spirit that people think is mythological coming to you. And I would say that your grandmother's going to help bring some stuff in for you until like you feel more like your spirit feels more formidable, and the animal spirit's gonna really. So if you get angry a lot soon, I wouldn't be super surprised. It's not to like take over your emotions, it's to make you feel like make you, what happened to you is very violating.
It
And
is
very debilitating, and you have to have some sort of anger over that. And I think there's like, people think that anger is negative, and it's not. Anger is a very good emotion. It's about how you use it.
Yes.
And this thing wants you to be angry in a fact of saying, like, anytime, like you said earlier, when you were writing down, you got a headache and you were like, no, I'm not gonna let this happen. It's that almost like a vindication of what you're feeling, and using that anger to bring out your warrior in you yourself. And so then that way it starts coming through in your spirit.
Exactly. Well, I definitely know its response to me saying, no, leave me alone, was to try to burn everything down.
Yeah.
That's, my goodness. What the hell?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm happy that it was inside because it makes me feel better. If it was outside, I would be like, well, shit, now there has to be another cleansing, because it's not supposed to be able to get to the house. It can be in the yard, but it can't get in your house, and it can't get to the house, and nobody can bring it in the house.
Yes.
So if it's inside, that makes me feel better, because that's warning. And that's like another, how can I explain it? It's just like the fact that like I normally wouldn't cleanse with fire.
Yeah.
I mean, you can cleanse with fire, and it'll cleanse the shit out of whatever, but like it also can be just like your animal who's coming in very formidable, very,
it's uncontrolled.
Yes, and it's very like a lion. It's like, you wait now, bitch. I eat your ass. That's pretty much like what it is. So I honestly am not worried about the fire. It
was terrifying. That's about it. But oh my, and the worst part is no one was around when it happened, and just so much. I mean, it wasn't just the fire. I mean, it has been everything from a voice coming through over my phone. We all looked at each other like, what in the world's going on? I wasn't the only person to hear it. Feeling watched, to being touched. That one absolutely made me completely mad. I have only been touched 2 times. One, I totally felt to my bone, and this time, and I just felt completely and utterly violated. And well, that's when I ended up turning to you, because, well, you know what? I've had enough of this. I don't want to do this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
There's now voices coming through my phone. And more importantly, I'm not getting a reading on it. So this is something I haven't encountered before. Because I try to memorize every feeling I get in a new situation. That's my body's response. I need to memorize that. And this was something that it really snuck up on me, like completely. But there were signs, but they were signs of other things. Not necessarily, they were more, I want to
It
say,
picked a good time.
it did. I mean, and the worst night of all was the thinning of the veil. I mean, the storm that came through my area, one, was horrendous. And two, as I told you, I just felt like there was something lurking outside my house. And it's very
Mhm.
rare that I feel that. I will take my dogs outside and investigate. I'm one of those people.
Mhm.
But this, I would, no way. Nope, wasn't going outside for it. Didn't want to. I burned sage in my fireplace. I burned sage in my house that night. Well, I did. I messaged you. I just felt,
Mhm.
I checked on you because it felt horrendous.
Mhm.
And that was a first time too. I usually really enjoy that night a lot. I think it's one of the most magical nights of the world. If you can feel
Mhm.
energy and stuff, you'll,
It's very different.
it is. It's almost,
It's literally like a spiritual New Year.
it is. It is so energetic and full of life and death, and it's at such a good balance that it is almost invigorating. It's really weird to say it that way. You don't think
Mhm.
life and death invigorating all in the same sentence, but it does. It reminds you of that balance and that things come around again. You can come back for a moment, you know? I don't know. It's really hard to explain, but I really love that night. It's never caused me an issue. I always prepare for it. I really felt completely and utterly unprepared for it this year, which was just odd. Everything about the past couple months has just been odd. And it was almost like a haunting now that I think about it.
Mhm. It was a little more than that.
It was, but it had similarities to that, which I'm like, wow, that could be really easily mistaken as that. And then you try to handle it like that, and maybe that's not the right approach at all.
Uh-uh.
And you'd be doing more damage than good.
Uh-huh.
So it's one of these things, and that's why I did not mind you sharing this at all, because this is almost something that, yeah, if you have never experienced it, you would not know what to do with it. Now that I know, I'm definitely writing it down in a diary somewhere and making a mental note forever
Mhm.
that basically something can hide in your shadow.
Yeah.
It can hide there and you'd never even know.
Mhm.
I didn't. I hadn't even thought to look at my shadow in a long time, which is odd too. I mean, I don't know. You look at your shadow and you acknowledge it, but I can sit there and think back in this past 6 months and I'm like, wow, you really didn't. I don't remember ever acknowledging my shadow in the past 6 months, which is weird. But again, I also feel like I had time missing, and remembering the timeline for this was hard and it shouldn't have been.
Mhm.
I am a very photogenic person. I see it, I write it down, I memorize it, I know it's there, and I was having a really hard time.
And the other thing too is like when you have something, I mean, we've talked about this. When you have something paranormal that happens to you, it sticks with you.
Yes,
So the fact that something's not sticking with you is concerning.
exactly. It was deliberate. Now that I think about it, everything, like, I didn't want to talk to you, and that's very odd. I talked to you about
Mhm.
everything.
Mhm.
Why didn't I want to talk to you about it? That's why I woke up the other morning. I'm like, I don't care what goes on in my mind. I'm not going to forget about it. I'm just going to follow through. And I just did it. I did it
Mhm.
before I could think about it. And was that playing a part in controlling it? Maybe. I definitely feel like it stole time from me.
Mhm.
I would have moments where I just sat there and blinked to go, oh my goodness, where did 10 minutes go? I mean, it wasn't necessarily, when I say lots of time, I don't want to be thinking I was wandering for an hour completely lost.
Mhm.
There's nothing along those lines. But 5, 10 minutes, a minute, 2 minutes, that is all very terrifying. You just sit there and go, oh my goodness, that wasn't good.
Mm-mm.
When you're doing it for your own meditative state, you're putting yourself in that area. But when you're pulled there, it's a very scary realization. It's a loss of control and a violation. You feel violated.
Yeah.
Mentally and spiritually violated.
Yeah.
Like, I as good as I feel on the inside, I'm also extremely exhausted because I have been fighting colds and coughs and allergies and all kinds of things, again, that almost run along the line of, like I said, a haunting or a demonic possession. I mean, it's like having all the flu symptoms, but not having the flu.
Yeah.
And that's disturbing. I just, oh my goodness. I don't even know anymore. But I mean, I think the scariest part of it all was when it touched me. I told everybody, I think I said it on the last episode I was on, I was seeing shadows.
Yes.
And again, that's very new to me. I wasn't really sure what to make of it. Of course, I was surprised, but it didn't have a feeling with it. There was no, I mean, even if I had fought fear, I'd have been okay with that. But I literally was like, oh, well, okay. I'm just going to ignore you and move on.
Mm-hmm.
And I only saw it in a human form once.
Mm-hmm.
All the other forms were much lower, like an animal, until it took on, I want to say, a cat size. Not a cat shape, but the cat size.
Mm-hmm.
And the day I felt it, I was standing in my kitchen. I was cooking. I was at the stove. And at first, it felt like my cat rubbing up against my leg. And that's nothing new. And then I felt like it grabbed my foot. Like it grabbed me. And I turn around, I spun around, and I look down, and my cat's not there. My cat is underneath the kitchen chair, staring at me like with eyes the size of quarters. And I was like, oh, something's not good here. This is bad. This is really bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I go over to my cat, and at that point, I noticed that she's actually growling very low, but there's a growl coming out of her. And I just had to calm her down from that point. But for a brief moment, she didn't even want me to touch her. And that made me even more scared. I'm thinking to everything that I've watched and learned and how many stories I've heard of people's own encounters. I'm like, okay, this is it. I did one of I'm going to release all my good energy and my light out, and I'm going to blast my house till it's blinding. Whatever you are, you can't be here. And I didn't understand at the time my response to that until 24 hours ago, almost 48 hours ago, actually, why I did that. I was literally trying to burn out any areas of shadows. I wanted nowhere in that house to be touched in darkness. And that was like an automatic, natural response. I didn't even think about it. I just stood up and did it and followed with the words, whatever you are, you can't be here. If you're not family, you've got to go. And it felt good, briefly. And again, this is all maybe I would say, a month and a half in between all that, I think. Maybe, again, I'm having trouble with my timeline here. But from there, I then go to still seeing things from the corner of my eye, more so now, to the voice coming out of my phone. My phone, Siri, just coming on and going, it said one time, "This is serious." And I was like, my husband goes, "What's serious?" I was like, I have no idea, but I'm turning this sucker off right now. And I did. I just turned it off. And Siri kicked on again, but this time I don't even remember what it said, but I don't even think it said a real word. It just kind of made a booping sound. And I was like, nope, turning you off again. And then I was reading and a man's voice just comes through. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what in the world is happening? And that was probably the scariest one, was actually hearing a male's voice.
See, I feel like the male voice is the thing. But
yes.
the Siri saying this is serious, I think that was someone trying to warn you. I don't think that was it. Because
exactly.
When you told me the man's voice before I even knew like what it said or anything, I get chills, which means it's tangible, and it's tangible in whatever it's doing on our plane. And when you told me about this is serious voice, I didn't even faze me. So I don't think those aren't the same.
Scary. It was more like, whoa, well, okay.
Yeah.
I still turned my phone off, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They're not scary, but just in case.
Yeah.
Turn that off. When I think about it, that's exactly how it felt. I knew when one was a warning, and I knew when one was bad. And that man's voice was eerie. I wish I had recorded, but it came so sudden.
No. No. Recording it would not be good.
No, probably not. But I mean, I just, it's like, I wish somebody else could have heard that. But then again, everybody on my sofa heard it. We all looked at me like, I'm like, I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't understand what's going on here either. I usually do. This time I don't. Because
Mhm.
it didn't feel spiritual.
Mhm.
It didn't have a feeling to it. And I didn't realize how much my own personal tuning device plays on feelings. And I really felt nothing with this. And that is terrifying to think of. I would rather have fear or even some anxiety. Even I started to get anxiety once I realized what it was. Once I acknowledged it, the anxiety came. But while I was trying to read it, I was getting nothing. And that's terrifying to somebody who relies on that as a sixth sense, my natural ability. It's not that it faltered me, but it wasn't
Mm-mm.
prepared for something.
Mhm.
And the lesson is, again, you don't really know everything, which I didn't think I did, but I thought I had known enough to at least pick up on warning signs and triggers. And I did eventually, but after I did was with talking it out with you,
Mhm.
writing it down, then things started to click and it was like, oh my goodness, we've got problems.
Yeah.
Something's bad. And that's when I messaged you like, hey, I got need your opinion on this one. Like, I'm in trouble here, aren't I?
Yep. Just a little bit. Just a tiny bit.
Yeah. I mean, and you know what? The crazy part is anybody who did listen to the last time I was on, if you listened and you did hear the sounds, I think you heard it because it mimics. And I figured that out today when I left my home. Now, I have sealed my home up. I was on the phone with you when I did that. So, yay, it
Mhm.
was a little extra boost. And I swept it, sealed it. I drew my own symbols on my own doorways, things that came from my heart. And when I left my home today and was a good distance away, I thought I heard my husband say, love you. And I kind of looked at him and he didn't say anything because you do the what? I didn't say
Yeah.
anything. And I was like, oh, you son of a bitch. Like, it's you. You're mimicking. It was you the whole time. So if you listened to that one and you caught it in the background, I'm pretty sure you heard it, which
Mhm.
is you can be scared with us too. Congratulations. It's terrifying. But it was there. So it's been causing problems for a while. And even when you and I sat and talked away from everybody, it was mimicking. It was tricksterish. It was mimicking and very mischievous. But even then, I kind of thought Fae and stuff. I'm surrounded by woods and stuff. I mean, that's nothing new. But it didn't feel that way either. It never really gave a feeling of something solid. So oh my goodness. It needs to go away. I can't wait
It
till it
will.
rains tomorrow. It is supposed to rain tomorrow. I caught the weather.
Good.
I can't wait. I cannot wait for a nice cleansing, earth healing rain. I'm ready.
So, to tell you the things that I saw from my side. So, I think the first time you were on the show was in February.
Mm-hmm.
I actually went and looked back. And the first time you joined Discord, which is when we really started talking, was in July.
Okay.
And you had a different, like, and we've discussed this, but for anybody who hears this, Laura and I mean, apart from the show and, when we first started talking, we don't really know each other. Like, I don't know your favorite color. I don't remember. You told me once how old you are. I don't remember.
Either.
But yeah, but you are a past life friend of mine, and I know which one you are, but I don't want to tell you until you're okay with death because it's a very long story.
Yeah, I
So
think I have a feeling, but we'll get into that another time. We'll
yes,
talk later on.
yes. After
Yep.
we deal with this dumbass.
Yeah, exactly.
So I know how, and I have to be very careful about the people that I let into my life and particularly into my heart because I connect with them in this way where you can be going through something and I can't, we may not even be talking anymore, but I know that you're going through something and I worry about you and I feel for you and I wish you the best and I am still connected to you in that way. And so I've
Yes.
had to learn sort of to be a little more closed off because then I end up with so many connections that I'm constantly feeling everybody else's stuff and barely
Mm-hmm.
even feeling my own.
Yes.
or to figure out how to end that connection with you. That's not going to happen. Good try. But but I knew when you joined in July, you felt different. You felt like in February, you just had this, like when we were on the phone, you had this huge light, and you felt like you almost do right now. When we were talking in Discord in July, you felt more like there was a wall holding you back, almost. And I couldn't really figure out what it was. And I was like, well, this is, we're all chatting in this room here, and that's a little different. Some people aren't comfortable with that. So I was like, maybe that's not. I was like, I don't really think it is. And I was like, well, when she's ready, she'll tell me. Yeah. And that's all I can do. So we had talked numerous times about times where like I was worried about you and you would tell me little things, or you were worried about me and you would tell me little things. And we had talked about that. And then you had the whole thing with your spirit, who didn't want to let go of you. Mm-hmm. And that really concerned me, because Lilith, which for those of you who, I don't think we share this at all, but I channel many different deities at the same time. At the time of which I was helping you with this, I was channeling Lilith and Rhea. So because of that, I was very, and I only really deal with spirits who are mothering, healing, and warriors. That's it. They have to be all three in order for me to deal with them. That's just what my spirit gravitates to and what my spirit calls in. Mm-hmm. And so Lilith had been very like, no, child, you're going to listen to me with your spirit guide, because she was really clinging to you.
It was a smackdown.
Oh, yeah. Well, Lilith, really Lilith choked her out.
It really was. It was. Yes. And that's intense, too. I mean, people, I don't know if anybody else has ever experienced that, but when you do start to work with these things, I didn't realize that they were sticking around too long. I was becoming a possession, not an acquaintance. So you help and then, bless and move on.
And there is, there's a connection and there's a love there. And I mean, I told you, like, when my spirit guides leave and, they're kind of like, okay, well, here's everything for now. I miss them. I'm like, oh man, I miss hearing this constant voice, or I miss like this person, because they all have different personalities, and you feel
and the feeling they bring over you when they come through. They all have their own unique, either a smell or a sound, or just an overall feeling. They all have, it's like their signature. It's their fingerprint. Everyone.
It's them.
Yes.
I knew what Lilith was doing to help you was right. I knew that you were supposed to bring a male spirit in. It concerned me though, like, and I had told you that you might feel a little like, she was depressed or sad about the fact of leaving you, because she was like stuck to you like glue and not letting you progress. But when you told me that you got depressed, I was just like, okay, don't get me wrong. There are times when my spirits and my energies, they do. It's not a possession. It's almost like you're so linked together, you feel what that person's feeling. Mm-hmm. Yes. So, and just because they're a spirit, they feel like a person. They feel like a legitimate being that is right here with you.
They do.
And so I was like, okay, that makes a little bit of sense that you might be a little depressed, but it sounded like it had gone on for way longer. And I was just like, okay. And so that's why I was kind of like on you a little bit. And I told myself, I was like, I need to back off, because I kept wanting to ask you, like, did the new one come in yet? Did the new one come in yet? Your one that was there is still kind of there. She's just kind of been beaten up a little bit, and, so that she understands that she can't do this. She can't hinder your growth. She can't be the only
one there, yeah.
Exactly.
She was literally keeping other goodness and other voices and people and even ancestors from stopping over and giving advice. She wanted to be the only one doing that.
And I will say, like, I do feel like because she did that, I think it made it easier for you to be kind of thrown off balance, because that was a big deal.
It was. I don't know. I probably never mentioned this ever, but she had been with me since I was like 8 years old. I had kind of a rough childhood. I won't get into details, and it doesn't really matter, because I bounced back from that. Mm-hmm. But when I needed mothering and advice, she took that role, and she stuck with that role. I think I know who it is now but she never she let herself be the image I wanted her to be. So, and
Mm-hmm.
to an 8-year-old child, you imagine a mother.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what she took on to a very serious point.
Yeah. Where she was just like, no.
Yeah, but I mean, the depression that came over it was extreme.
Yeah.
Extreme. It really was. And like, I did end up going to therapy. I know I said that in the last
Yeah.
session because I got to a point where I was like, wow, I can't handle this anymore.
Which I was proud of you when you told me that. But then I also was just like, but no.
It's not really a problem. Yeah.
No, like, and that shouldn't have been the case.
Yeah. It really went, it went extreme.
That's why I'm sitting here and I was like, when you told me that and you told me everything, I was like, she's really been going through it. And I was just like, but why? Like the male spirit when Lilith and myself, because Lilith wanted to drop kick her ass a long time before, I told her not to, and then finally she said something, and I was like, all right, Lilith, there you go. And so
because it was very exhausting to the soul. She was becoming more I don't want to say powerful. They don't lose their power. More predominant, like you can't make a decision without running it by me real quick, or and almost making me second guess myself on things that I've already learned. Like the lesson was already learned. It was already there. Your purpose, what you were there to teach, is done. So now you're just helicoptering.
Yeah, and preventing me from growing even further.
Yeah, and that in itself, I mean, that's like having, well, if you're a gardener, if you keep it in the same pot for so long, the roots are going to get bound up and tangled up together in this giant mesh, and they can't spread out and grow further.
And it's just going to wither away and die.
Yeah. Eventually, that's the end result. Yeah. And that's the same effect. You have to be very open. It's why you really shouldn't focus on one deity and stuff. You should, even if you just learn about others, you're broadening your mind as any knowledge goes. So that's that. Yeah, that was rough. And I do think you're right. That was probably the real beginning of it. And I knew something was wrong. Like I said, I wanted to run to the mountains, which is usually what I do when I feel completely drained. I just want to go up there and hide, which is fine. I like that.
And you had told me that you felt that way, though. Like, you told me that you felt drained. And and the thing is, like, when I don't think that you'd seen the fight that Lilith had with her, but I knew that you felt like she was throwing things at Lilith.
Yes.
And the reason why was because, I was not fighting with Lilith, but I was basically like, I can handle it. It's fine. I do need you there for backup, but stop trying to drop kick the woman. And she was just like, well, she's not going to go unless you drop kick her. And I was like, can we let that be the last resort, please? And she was just like, fine. So that's basically what she did, because she was just like, I know what to do and I trust her, but I felt like I didn't want to put you through that harsh of a removal or of a bringing down. And so when it all happened, I remember like what I saw Lilith. I saw her. She put her hand around her throat and started choking her. Is what she did. Because
nice.
she just wouldn't. I mean, and for everyone who's saying this is very violent and why is like your deity fighting with her deity? We were doing this for what, 45 minutes?
Yeah.
Where like we tried to do it amicably. Yeah, Lilith gave me
nice about it.
42 minutes to do it my way.
Yeah. And the reality is, they've also been fighting for thousands of years. It's okay. Yeah. This is actually pretty tame.
Yeah.
It's more brother-sister fighting or sister-sister fighting is what this was. But yeah, the older sister had to turn around and go, all right, I've had enough of this nonsense.
Yeah. But see, the thing is, like, I saw the male spirit there. I saw the one that was supposed to be coming in. So that's why I was so confused. I mean, I knew that he was going to take his time. And I remember, like, I told you that. And I was like, you know, he is going to take his time. And then I remember you told me about, like, the new shield that you had seen. And I was like, oh, that's really pretty. Very strange, though, but really pretty. And I was just like, okay. And I can't remember, though, for the life of me, I can't remember why you felt you had to make a shield. Something happened.
I got scared. I had an extreme, utter panic attack. Like, I wasn't alone.
Okay.
And it was terrifying. And usually when that happened back in the day, I would imagine my girl with me and we would be standing there with our shields up. And I was like, nope, this time I have to do it on my own. But I really got scared. I mean, I'm one of those folks where I try not to stay up after midnight because it's a very anxious time for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because as everybody knows, and anything after midnight it's a smaller, thinner veil, but it's still there. It happens. That's why they say everything happens at 3 and stuff. Once the darkness is in its place, it's a little thinner.
Mm-hmm.
While you hear things, the world goes a little quieter. Energy is more freely around to be taken from, et cetera, et cetera. So I try not to stay up, but it was one of those nights I couldn't sleep. And then I just became utterly panicked. Like I was like, something's here.
Mm-hmm.
Something's here. I can't see it. I feel it. I know it. I don't have a shield. And I'm like, yes, you do. You can make your own. And that's how that all came to be. But it was definitely a fear, an anxiety attack almost.
Mm-hmm.
Terrifying. I knew that I was not alone. And that happens. I mean, if you listen like we do, that happens a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's just usually not a complete and utter fear because you've had this happen 100,000 of times before in your life.
Mm-hmm.
But when the fear is there, you take it seriously.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. And I did. I was like, you need to protect your ass and go to sleep. And that's what I did. But yeah, that was scary.
Well, and then you had the guy who made the leaf and forest shield around you too. And so when you told me that, I was like, sweet, so he's coming forward. And then you told me that you thought he was a past life, and I was just like...
Yep, he had a different feeling altogether. He didn't feel... I don't even know how to put it. He did not feel... He was from that area. Like, he was not supposed to be a deity. He was not supposed to do that. And I was like, well, the next possible thing to me was, well, maybe since I am asking a lot of questions about my own past life, he's coming through.
Mm-hmm.
And it fit. It felt right. It didn't feel off. And I'm like, okay, well, we'll go with that then, since it doesn't feel like it's rejecting that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I tried to rebalance my life out again. And it did for a little bit, but I think it was all an act.
Yeah.
I don't think any of that was real.
I would agree. Because
None of
then, the only other time that I can see I really felt like you weren't yourself was and I'm trying to think of how I can bring up this conversation without really talking about what it was. Do you remember you had a conversation with me about why you felt guilty?
Yes.
That. I was like, that is not you. I was
Yeah,
like, I'm sorry. There's something wrong. I was like, I mean, don't get me wrong. We do have off days, and you had a hard time with the veil. And we both had, I honestly would say it's probably the same entity that we both showed up around both of us. But you did not feel like you felt panicked, and you felt scared, and I couldn't understand why. And I was just like, I think I brought up the fact that Hades should have been around somewhere. I was just like, where's Hades? Because Hades is, for people who don't work with deities or don't understand them, when you have darker deities, Hades, Lilith, Hecate, the Morrigan, when you work with those deities, you feel different. Like Lilith for me she's dark, but it doesn't mean it's not dark like evil. That's not what that means.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it's not evil. It's an understanding. It's if you're one of those people that love the night, it's that feeling.
Yeah. It's the feeling you get when you look up at the moon and it's full, and it's that feeling that you get when you're looking at the stars, and it's that feeling, it's that it's like a wild feeling. It's a wild understanding of life.
No fear of the night at all. You're not scared of it at all.
Mm-mm.
You're just not. It's very peaceful. It's energizing.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And so I'm sitting here and I'm like, well, you're having all of these emotions so if Hades has been around you, you should be able to call on Hades, or Hades should be there and be helping you. And I don't understand, where is Hades, or why are you not, I felt like you weren't feeling him anymore. You weren't feeling and I hope this doesn't sound like I'm blaming you. I don't mean it like that. I mean, like, I feel like something was cutting you off.
Yeah. It was like a complete energy block. Like when they tell you, when you sit down and meditate and you can clear all your chakras, da 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 da, that's a wonderful feeling. But imagine having that and then all of a sudden just plugging it up.
Yeah.
Like you would a tub.
Yeah.
It's very debilitating.
And then when you sent me your message, it felt like, I remember like I was sitting at work and my phone went off, and like Discord will only give you like a little portion of it in your notifications, and I just saw, I can't remember the first word that you put, but I saw like, I think it was like advice or like something.
Yeah, I was like
that.
So I gotta ask your opinion on something here.
Yes. And I read that word and I was like, she figured it out. And so then I read everything. You gave me some clues. You told me about the cat.
Mm-hmm.
You told me about the light ball. And so what I did, and so when I do long distance work at all, I have to kind of dial myself back from the physical realm, basically, to do everything. And I immediately, because I knew like you had it was kind of like you unlocked the book, like you unlock like the secret code to like what was happening. And I was just like,
Yep.
Okay, like we need to work right now while this is like unlocked before it closes again. And so I went, and using what you told me about the cat, I basically dialed into that. And then it was like, I went backwards in time. And so for me, when I knew it had to be somewhere that you had gone prior to October. And I wasn't sure if it was in the summer, but I was like, it's somewhere between February and before and prior to the month of October. Not even like Halloween, but the month of October.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I know like you've gone a lot of different places because I also follow you on Instagram and you've been hopping around in the woods. But even in those pictures, like you looked beautiful. Like you looked like you were in your element and you looked like you were comfortable. But
Yes.
you like, even like you had like a darker feel to you than you normally did. Like you seemed comfortable, and the pictures were beautiful, and like
But
you
there
were
was
beautiful.
a shadow.
Yes, there was something. And I was like,
there was a shadow.
well, but I can figure out if that was how you guys meant the pictures to be. You know what I mean? Because like we talked about it a little bit, that it was like a shoot.
Not
so really. I didn't know if like that was the thought.
That's the crazy part. When you say it, like I can honestly say, like, of course I was going for more of it
was like a badass witch vibe.
Yeah, that's what it was supposed to be. But I noticed like my face was in shadows.
Yes.
Like 90% of the time in all those pictures, which is kind of odd.
Exactly.
I'm not a professional model or anything. I do this I do this for myself. Ladies, I suggest it. Just go do it. Who cares? You're the only one who looks at it. Enjoy yourself. But I do it for me. And it kind of helps me visualize my inner warrior a little bit. I'm not going to lie.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I enjoy doing it. It's something I do all the time. It's just kind of my little thing. And they're never like that. It came out really well. Like you said, they were beautiful, but everything was kind of had a shadow on it.
And the ones that it's easiest to tell it in is the person, like it's you and like another woman. And that's when you can see that there's something off, because her face is fine.
Yeah.
Your face is not.
Yeah. She looks all bright and happy, and I'm looking all dark and gloomy.
Yeah, you look weird. Like you like it was yes, it's very strange.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I followed it back and I kept going back and back and back, I never got the voice. I never got the voice that mimicked the laughter. I don't know. I mean, we did it. No, we didn't do that. Episode was not on Halloween. It was 2 weeks prior to. So, I mean, we were close to the veil. Spirits do get curious. And so when you told me about the shadows, I was like, okay, cool. Because
yeah,
like,
me too. I'm like, well, that kind of happened this time.
Yeah.
Maybe family's coming to visit my old kitty. Who knows? You never know. Well, that's just it. Like, it's one of those moments where it did so well at hiding itself. Like an espionage spy or something. It was
it was good.
Crazy.
That's what it gets off on.
An evil 007.
Well, but the thing is, like, so when you told me about the shadows, I was like, this is very, I was excited for you for being able to see it, because I hadn't remembered, like, if you could, like, I know that you could feel very strongly. I know you could hear and sense and somewhat see, but I didn't know, like, if you were used to, like, seeing them that often. So I was like,
No.
oh, this is super cool. But then that's why I asked you if you felt something from it, because that's what I knew, like, if you felt something from it, then that would be a really good indicator. And, like, I know that you have really strong abilities, and I trust in your ability. So I said, okay, cool. And so when you told me, like, you know, that it might have been your cat, I was like, that's an interesting, like, thought, you know, hopefully. And then you told me about the guy, and I was like, no. I was like,
That was
no,
weird.
that one bothered me.
Yeah.
Because from when you told me, I saw it in my mind's eye and I didn't like it. And I was just like,
Yeah.
well, here's the thing, though. I have literally, even on this podcast, talked about a time when I woke up in the middle of the night and I had 3 shadow people looking over me because they were curious.
Yeah, it's not okay. And that happens too. That's
Yes.
there's a range of categories for shadow people.
Exactly.
Like, it's the curious ones, the bad omen ones, the ones just that happen not to take a form. I mean, that happens too. Sometimes the simplest form is just a form. It's not necessarily supposed to be a shadow. That's just how it's perceived. It's such a variety of characters and people and
Yes.
things that it's hard to pinpoint down a shadow to one category. I really don't like when people are like, oh, shadows are just all evil and shadows are just all good. You don't know what you're getting. Well, that's what I've learned now. You really don't know what you're getting until it's ready to tell you what it's getting.
Yeah.
And yeah. I mean, what this wasn't, it was, how do I want to put it?
It's a trickster.
Yeah. But this was a trickster of Earth, like the land, which is weird, but it really wasn't the land at all.
No, it was more like
a spirit at all, and it wasn't a demon. Like, I don't know, no, it wasn't that at all either. Didn't have those kind of properties to it. It's a thing.
Well, see, and the thing is too is like, so I connected it with, I didn't connect it with the voice I heard laughing. I feel like that was something, but I don't feel like that was it. Because when I heard the laughter, it didn't bother me like when I thought of the shadow figure creeping out from the corner.
Yeah,
and
it was the other little sounds, like the little
the little crackles, and
weird, very low. That was not female. Didn't really have a male tone to it either. It was just a voice. It's weird.
Yes. So I followed it back and I saw the shadow. I was like, okay, so it's connected to the shadow you saw pop up from the corner. Then I realized it was connected with the tiny cat that we had talked about. And then when I went back and I kept going back, I felt like it had come to you in your shadow.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, like, you know, I have spent a very long time sitting here basically since like fallish, going like, this is shadow season. Like, this is when like a whole bunch of things are coming up. And it makes it hard because this is when depression comes up. This is when anxiety comes up. This is when panic and fear and anger. And it's supposed to be for you to heal. And like in the conversations that we had, like it did sort of sound like you were accepting like a different source of understanding from it. But it still just didn't really feel like authentically yours. If that
it wasn't
sense.
healing. Yeah,
No.
It wasn't healing at all. I wasn't learning either. I mean, I was and I wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
I was learning things on my own, not from it.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense. It wasn't assisting me or anything. And even being here was like, no. I was just trying to reach out in other areas to find answers. So it was my own self reaching out even to you and to books and stuff. But I mean, yeah, I wasn't healing from this at all.
Well, the other thing too is like, I remember on Halloween, I was very protected. Like, my detas came and they protected me. But with you...
Yeah, he left me.
Yeah, well, he was off having a fucking party by himself with all the dead.
Terrible date for Halloween.
He's like, I'll see you later. I've got some dead people to meet.
Freak, man. You're supposed to help me, not leave.
Yeah. And I remember, like, I was like, okay. So it was just like a lot of like tiny little things that didn't fully add up. They could be easily explained by the time of the season, the time of the year, little odds and
Convenient.
ends.
Convenient.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like little things like that. And so that made sense. But then it was just like, but something's off.
Mm-hmm. Just didn't feel right. It just,
Mm-mm.
it was at the right time, but it really, it was almost like it was forced into happening.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so then I told you that, and it's very funny because my reaction to what I talked to you about and what I told you on Friday is very different than how I feel right now about it. Because on Friday, I felt the sense of urgency, and I felt this like sense of, oh, this has
Now
been
or
going on
never.
for a while. Yeah.
Now or never.
Yes. And I don't think I agree with you. Like, it's not a demon, but
Mm-mm.
it's something that has that sort of like, it's a very dark, it's like icky and black. So, okay, so going back to everything. So you told me what happened. I told you where I thought you got it from. I asked you if you went out anywhere. You said you weren't really sure of anywhere that you could have picked it up from because you watch yourself. And I was like, yeah, but like you can't really watch your shadow.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I mean, it doesn't matter. You think you can wear as many crystals and wards and stuff as you want, but it didn't really, it got in a safe zone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And apparently that is a safe zone, folks. I didn't know that.
Well, because I'll tell you why. Because this thing, it's like, and I said it to you, it's like a parasite. So like think about like a tick.
Mm-hmm.
The way that you can end up with a parasite from a tick is you don't wear the right type of clothes. You're walking around. It climbs up. It brushes from grass onto you somewhere, bites you. The parasite gets in your system, and you don't know. You know, you get the head out. You think you're fine. You think everything's okay until you end up in the hospital like 2 weeks later because of a parasite.
Exactly.
But like that's what it did to you. Like that's what it did to you, and it needed a space that was dark.
Mm-hmm. Well, it got it.
Yeah. And your shadow, like the reason why people call it your chateau self is because your chateau self is the darker aspects of you. And you take the point, like it did it, honestly, it's a grade A hoe. Like it did it at the perfect time because summer is when you have more light than dark, which means that you have a stronger shadow than normal.
Yep.
You had gone to the mountains. Which means that you were traveling. This thing is a traveler. It's icky and it's black and it needs to be on a shadow and it hits you right before shadow season, right before you can start healing.
Yep. And it did. It did everything.
Grade A pimp.
Perfectly. Yes.
Yep.
Yes, it did. Yep. Bitch was looking for a gold digger. Ain't gonna get it here, but it tried.
It did.
Yeah, it was, I mean, I can't even, and again, this isn't something I feel you could prepare for. Now, that's not to say like you're completely helpless against it, but I am going to take better precautions on warding my door and stuff so that when I do come in, whatever is out there isn't going to cross my threshold. And I thought I had that pretty well done, but I fortified that a little bit more, and I'm going to keep it that way because I don't ever want that to happen again.
Well, and the thing too, though, is like, the only real way for you to know if something's on you or with you or whatever is, hearing, seeing, feeling, smelling, whatever. But this thing even didn't want you to talk to me.
No, it
and
didn't.
We talked at least a couple times a week.
Yeah, we talk all the time.
Yeah. Like, even like a, hey, how's it going? Whatever, blah, blah, blah. Hey, there's a new episode of like Sub-Zero out.
Yeah.
Like, it just didn't want you to like discuss it with me.
No, and I would throw tidbits out, but and it's not that I was like saying, no, I won't give the whole story, but I didn't give the whole story.
Mm-hmm.
It was weird. And I'm not saying like it had control of me, I was possessed, but it definitely triggered the way I was thinking. I can't even explain it. It is the craziest damn thing ever because I've never had this happen before. Again, it's not that I don't play with shadows and they're not there and I don't acknowledge them, but I learned when I was a teenager that as many nice ones as you can come across are some really, really bad ones behind there, and just leave
Mhm.
it be. And that's just, we do that thing. We do our own thing. Just let it go. I've never had one just hang around like this, lurk in my shadow like it did. I definitely feel violated.
You should. I mean,
I
it was
did.
basically just like little by little, like
Hmm.
infecting you with like the inky blackness. And
Yeah.
I don't think that it could like, I don't think that it could like possess you, but I
No.
think it could like make you lose yourself.
Hmm.
And that's what like it
It's
was
like
doing.
whispering in your ear, like the devil on the shoulder. He's just like, oh, well, you should feel really crappy about that. Let's just stick with that. And
Mm-hmm.
it's the power of suggestion is very powerful. We
Mm-hmm.
all know that. And it was there. And I didn't even know it. So I guess it just means to show, like, honestly, not to be, again, we've totally discussed this before, and I've told it with you too, not to be gluttonous about yourself and like, oh yeah, I'm the best, and da 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 da, and
Yeah.
drink yourself up. But no matter how much knowledge you put out, something is going to get by you. Something, and it's not because you're not knowledgeable enough, it's because you've never experienced it before.
And
That's all.
spirits are tricky. Like you also
Yeah.
have to like, you have to look at like your personality versus
Hmm.
like this thing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Example, I know narcissists. I know
Hmm.
them. I've worked with them. I've lived with them. I understand that. It doesn't
Hmm.
mean that, like, right now I understand what the game is, but it takes you time to figure out when
Yeah.
someone's playing a game on you.
Yeah.
Because you have to sit there and you're like, what the fuck do you think you're doing? And then
Right.
you really have to look at that for a second. And as you investigate it more, then you realize, oh, okay, you're playing a game with me. And
Hmm.
now I know. But you have to be able to investigate that moment and figure out what's happening. But if something cuts off your ability to investigate, you're just going to keep letting the action happen because you don't know. You
Yeah.
can't figure it out. You can't look inside and see, like, you might know there's something wrong, but you don't know what.
No. And that's what happened. That's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what happened. Horrible. I would not wish this on my worst enemy.
No.
It's just
No.
it's and again, even if it was a spirit, I think I would have felt it way sooner. If it had been demonic, I would have felt it sooner. If it had been
Mhm.
anything other than what it came as,
It was just a
I,
thing.
yeah,
We don't
I would
have
have
a
felt,
word for what it
yeah.
is.
It doesn't have an emotion.
No.
It's leech-like because because it just copied me. And when it didn't like me being bright and cheery, it just put itself there.
Mm.
And it was weird. I didn't realize, I mean, I felt something was wrong. I knew I wasn't myself. But again, I'm like, well, you're going to go to therapy and you're talking to people now. And maybe you're going to come out again. You're going to make it through this again.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're being affected by something that you cannot see, feel, or touch, you don't know. How are you supposed to fight that? It's like carbon monoxide. You don't know it's there.
Yeah.
You just go to sleep and bam, you're affected by it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it was. And that's how I feel now that I think about it. I feel like it just crept in like a gas and I breathed it in and didn't even know it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just saying this 1,000 times. I totally feel violated again. But if it was something I had dealt with before, I would have known which actions to take. But dealing with a thing that doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have any properties that tie it to a past life, giving it some humanity left in it, or traces of an actual soul, none of those things were there. And those things that make us humans and our energy specifically were not there.
You know what it reminds me of?
The Blob.
No. The Hollow in Charmed.
Oh.
That's what it reminds
good
me
one.
of. It's like that. It's like this thing. If you guys haven't seen Charmed, which I'm sorry for your childhood.
Yeah, you missed out on life. If
You
missed out
did,
on
and just watch it again. Understand that again. This happened in the 90s, and so some of the CGI is a little bad. But
Terrible.
listen,
It's
if they
terrible.
would have had a budget now and no budget cuts then, it would have been a lot better. It's still a great story. Just watch it. You'll understand what I mean by the Hollow. So the Hollow, in the Hollywell's house, there's this an earthquake that releases this thing, and it is a black gas, and it slowly takes over the sisters, and it has them start doing evil things that they normally would not do. And it's not human, it's not an animal, it's just other. It's just other. And they get rid of it, and they have to get rid of it by shining light on it. And they do this by that, it's some spell that their grandmother had taught them when they were children that's all about light, about increasing your light and making it so no shadows can reside in it, which is exactly what you did. And it just reminds me of that, because I think, like, we always think, like, oh, well, it's got to be a spirit. If it's not a spirit, then it has to be a demon. If it's not a demon, it has to be an angel. Like, it has to, like, we're always trying to find some label to put on it, and this thing just doesn't have one. It's just a thing.
Honestly, there's tons of folklores about a thing. And I think, as in a lot of folklores and stories, like you said, charmed and stuff, I think what that represents is, I think I just crossed in like an emotional pollution and a spiritual pollution, like a gathering of just everything that's yucky about our world, because those energies have to go somewhere. I mean, it's there. You sometimes see it every day in actions and people, but for those that just kind of, like, you know, hide those emotions, those energies go somewhere. And I think I literally crossed into that pollution, and it just stuck. It stuck to whatever could handle it.
Yeah. And it knows what it's looking for.
Oh, yeah. And I'm a beacon. I mean, I always have been.
Yeah.
And I'm never ever alone. That's for darn sure. And it's been this way my whole life. I'm okay with it, but I've never had something try to use it against me. Yeah. And I again, violated, but I don't like that. And again, it's not something like we can tell everybody about this and they could go out and do it tomorrow. And even with warning, you wouldn't really know.
Yeah.
I think it takes on, again, its mimicking properties, lets it just like a parasite just to adjust to its environment and learn and be all gross and disgusting and yicky and violating and awful. And now it's stuck outside my house, but it can stay there for as long as I care.
Well, to get it outside of the house, I told you, like, stuff. I remember it was very interesting, because then as I, like, followed it back, I felt what you had felt. So you had headaches, and I started getting a headache, and then this motherfucker, it was tricky. So I kept, like, trying to figure out, where did it come from? What was it? And it was just, like, every time I would try to, like, veer me off of the path, and I was like, no. I was like, you can't fool me that way, nice try. And so that's why I said, okay, well, I don't need to know where you came from anymore, because
I know where you're going.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I know exactly where you're going, and I know what to do to get you there. And so it's just like, so I figured it out. I'm done. But what was really important was for me to, because, like, it can't affect me. It needs to do it in a more physical way. But that doesn't mean
you needed to touch it. You needed to walk across it to do it.
Yes. But it doesn't mean that it can't affect me.
Yep.
So I was just like, first off, let's just close that shit right down. So that was fine. And then I wrote out exactly, and I had to be in a space where I wouldn't be bothered in order to write down, because I had all the steps, but it was like, I was like, okay, sweep. And then I was like, okay, but you have to say this thing. I was like, all right, cool. And then what? And I was like, motherfucker, it's too much shit. Hold on. So, and I was still doing this all at my desk at work. And I was like, no, I need to go outside where I can do this.
And I had already started sweeping and burning sage. Like, I already started all this, like, by the time we talked. We were prepared and ready to go.
Yes. So I gave you a thing, and I remember part of it was the darkness and blackness. And when I said that to you, I just had shivers just go right up my spine. And I was like, ha. I was like, that's why I don't need your fucking name, buddy. I already got you.
I know what you are. Yep.
Yes. And, like, you would think that, like, those words don't The reason why, like in exorcism movies and all that shit, people try to get the name is because the name holds power. Just like I have a very spiritual name that people don't know unless they've been in a past life of mine of when I got it. Or like you have a spiritual name that people may not know. And people can give you that name and they can like tell you how to get to it and stuff like that. But so do other entities and other energies. Deities have a specific name that we've assigned to them, and they have their own name. And when you work with them and they trust you, they will give you that name so that you can call back on that deity whenever you need to immediately and embody that deity and feel comfortable. So I said, okay, that I had to take, like, it was almost like taking not part of it, but taking like linking it to the words. And so you have to sweep, and then we talked about sage, and then so I don't know how to make black salt. You do. I did not know what you had to do, but then essentially I guess what I told you was making black salt, but just leaving it as a paste.
Yes. What you can do with that black salt is, for anybody who doesn't know, black salt, I think everybody has their own little recipe, but a good, really good classic black salt recipe is to take your sage ashes, if you have an incense of sage, or frankincense, any of the blessing smells that you burn, and put them in with salt. Mine is a combination of sage, and I take the first tree I burn in my fireplace, and I take those ashes and mix them in, because the fire is the heart of the home. It's your hearth. And I usually find a special wood to burn. I used maple this year. It's very hardy where I come from, so I was going for more of a connection with my surrounding areas. But that's my black salt mixture. And it's pretty powerful, and it can be made into a paste because of the charcoal in it. And yeah, people have been using this forever. Me personally, I sit mine out in moonlight and let it charge up too, because I want it to be, black salt is used like you would regular salt. It's just, it's like the steroid version of it. It's a little bit more powerful than a white salt line, and can be used as barriers. They're on both sides of my door right now. And I also drew, like I said, everybody uses sigils and stuff. My sigils are my own personal ones. I don't find them in a book. I just do what comes from my heart, because I'm artistic to begin with, and that's meaningful to me. I mean, I have lines and stuff I've drawn since I've remembered to draw. But black salt's pretty amazing. If you have issues with things on the dark side, pull yourself out some black salt. It's pretty potent.
And see, the thing is, like, the instructions that I gave you were personal to you.
Yes, they were.
Because the broom thing, like, if you were to ask me to sweep my house, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't have a special broom to do so. I've thought about it, but I don't have one. So if you tell me that, there's nothing magical and intentional, really. I mean, you can sweep your house intentionally. You can do that.
Oh, yeah. I'm not
absolutely. You can't. But, like, I know I specifically said to you, like, with, like, I remembered that you had one broom. You're like, you had someone. I was like, great.
I do. I have several brooms that I'm very proud of. I've come across over the years. One was from the dollar store, for future reference. You can get one of those. They smell like cinnamon, and hey, it became mine.
And it worked.
Yes, it did. Well, brooms get placed above the doorway. You're supposed to walk over I put it above the doorway. You were supposed to jump over the broom handle, but for protection and good luck, and there's so many folklores for it. But I have mine hanging above my doorway, above my bedroom, to protect my sleeping quarters and my husband and the fertility of the home and all that happy stuff. But they're special to me, and I use those suckers. I swept house. I was sweeping air in the corners, looking like a crazy guy. The UPS man showed up in the middle of all this. I got a nice strange look from that poor gentleman. He probably won't be back. And if he does, it'll be a quick, here's your package, I gotta go. I looked like a crazy lady. But I was in a panic. When I realized what was going on and I had finally reached out to you, the fear set in. Like
Mhm.
I think you said, my heart feels like it's pumping really fast.
Yes.
You feel that? I'm like,
Yeah.
I am hyperventilating right now. I am in a terrible state and this thing's got to go.
Yeah. Well, and I remember like so we talked about the black salt. We talked a little bit. I remember I told you if you felt tired to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I got, I had finished everything. We even had a beautiful lizard that came by, and I was like,
Oh
great,
yeah,
like
that was interesting.
yes. And I was like, and it was, as I was like, you were talking, and I think I had given you almost everything or something like that. And it just turned its head, looked directly at me, and then started bobbing its head. And I was
Just
like, okay.
nodding along.
Yeah, I was like, so you're for her. Cool. Thanks, lizard. I appreciate it. And then I sent you that random article on like the lizard and all the different things it meant.
Big power animal there. That's an
Yes.
let's look that up. They're awesome. They are literally about going through fires and starting over again.
Yes. And I was like, you needed
amazing. That. Yeah, I did. I really, really did. But it was just ironic and really good timing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot of what this is.
Yeah.
Good timing.
The thing is, and I always hate when like this is the perception that like, okay, well, if you can like see things in the future, you can like, because I gave you some messages from the future, and I'm going to smile when they come true.
But it's always the fun part. I got to tell you.
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
It's kind of like a kid getting their way. You're like,
yeah. But like the thing is, sometimes people have the perception that like, okay, well, if you can see the future, why can't you see this happening? It's like, it's not for me to. It's like I'm not gonna like sit, like I very clearly would never want you to go through this, and I told you. So the whole reason, and Laura was the one who brought this up, and because she's a sweetheart, the whole reason that you guys are hearing this podcast is because I told her, I said you can't banish it. Like she can't banish it.
No,
she just can't. Nope. I can't banish it. I can send one of my deities to, but it still has something else it needs to do. And what sucks about it is it's going to stay in her yard for a while. And when I told you that you were going to feel really tired, I know I had come back downstairs and somebody asked me a question the second I got in, and I went to go tell them, and it was like everything went blank from my mind, and I was like, oh, no, you do not. And I just pushed with all the force of wind I had at that thing and smacked the bejesus out of it. Yeah. And I don't know if that's when, like, it, like, left your house and the kitchen door closed or whatever, but I was just like, no, like, you don't ever try to fucking fuck with me. Ever.
Yeah, my door just slammed completely shut. We got this gust of wind, like, out of nowhere. And it was like, boop, shut my door. I'm like, well, okay, then. I guess we're... Thanks for closing that up for me.
Well, because the problem is, like, it's still there because it's going to take its own time to leave. It had, like, it needs
It was very
someone.
comfortable, first off.
Yes.
It was comfortable.
And it needs someone. It's like, just like a parasite. There are some parasites that they can exist on their own, and then there's others that they need a host. And it needs a host, and if it doesn't have one, it'll just die out. Yep. But what it needs is somebody who has the ability to use their abilities. They have a link to the spirit world. They have a link to everything else. And this thing is going to stay in your yard for a little bit, and then with a rainstorm, I had already asked the elements, and you told me this too. You said, oh, well, that explains the 20-mile-an-hour wind that just came around my house. I had asked the air to basically continuously keep up the barrier, just to add more gusto to it. Yeah. And then the rain and the earth would help too, but the earth couldn't help until the rain did. Because this is almost like a stain on the land. Yes. It's not like, the land doesn't really want anything to do with it, but it's just like, motherfucker, it's there.
Deal with it, but it's
not
natural, but it did. It's like it's like pollution. That's the best way.
It's like a stain.
Yes, exactly. It's awful. And like, it's getting dark now, and I don't like it.
I know.
bad because I'm I respect the dark. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like it. It does have its healing properties and its purpose, but until it goes away out of my yard, I'm not taking the dogs outside once it goes dark. That's for someone else to do. I'm
No,
not
if you put the dogs outside, they're just gonna go right over there and start barking, and then you'll know
doing-
exactly where it is in your
Oh
yard,
yeah.
and you don't need that.
Well, it's funny because my dogs did bark randomly a couple times at night throughout the
Mm-hmm.
couple months, and that's not like unusual.
Mm-hmm.
But like there were times when even the kids are like, "Man, what in the world were the dogs barking at last night? They were so vicious. It wasn't just a I hear a deer outside, I'm going to bark a couple times and
Mm-hmm.
let the deer know I'm here." I mean, these were all out barks, like growls, like and of course you got to get up and look. I never saw anything.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was probably that doing its thing, like a creepo that it is. I'm sure it's gonna lurk around and do its weird, gross
Mm-hmm.
thing for a while, and it's just lovely. But I mean, like you said, we can't banish it. It's not my place or your place to banish it.
No.
Could we? Yes, but it's not really our path.
It
to
still
do.
has more, it's
Yeah,
not, the thing is,
I was a temporary hotel stay. I was
yes,
really not supposed to be permanent.
no, it
I
wanted you to.
Yeah, but it's supposed to go to someone else, and
Yes.
I feel really bad for her. I know it's a her, and I feel awful for
Mm-hmm.
her going to get this, and this is going to change her life. But that's also why you and I felt the need to let everybody know about this. We may not be able to banish it, but we can sure talk to people about it and make them aware that listen, if all of a sudden your body takes this complete dramatic change and you don't feel comfortable in your own skin, it may not just be you. Again,
Yeah.
it's always good to go talk to therapists. I'm not downing that. Mental health and spiritual health are very important.
Mm-hmm.
But once you've got the mental aspect down, turn around and look at the spiritual aspect. Because again, now this wasn't really spiritual per se, but talking to another spiritual friend, you helped
Mm-hmm.
me find it. I couldn't see it. You could.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
how good you are or, how many times, you're accurate in anything and you're reading and your tarot and all that. Something is going to trick you.
Yeah, because you still have to live your life and you still have
Mm-hmm.
things that you have to learn. And this
Yeah.
this teaches you. Honestly, for this person who is going to have this thing, I know what the person looks like and I know where they're going to get it. And
I feel I can't stop it,
no,
unfortunately.
it's not. And the
It's a
thing is,
lesson for them.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's really hard. That's really hard to look at something and be like, I want to help you. I don't want to watch you go through this, but you do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not for me, because if I interfere, this lesson that this person's going to learn is dramatically going to reshape their life.
Yes.
And they need that. They're kind of wandering right now, and just like this thing is a wanderer, and it only attaches to people with strong abilities, and this person does not know that they have these abilities. They're curious, but they're not dedicated, and because they kind of go into the woods and they think like, oh, it's just a fucking play toy, that's why they end up with it, and they've got some shit that they need to learn. And it can be prevented if you listen to your spirit guides. It can be prevented if you do tarot. It can be prevented if you use crystals. But whatever is meant to come into your life and into your path is going to happen.
Yeah. There's only
know?
something you can prevent. I mean, if
Yeah.
you live, and you wouldn't want to do that in the first place. Things have to happen to you. I mean, I know,
Mhm.
nobody ever wants anything bad or stressful or any of that to come into their lives, but that is the circle of life, the good and the bad, and there's lessons in the good and the bad. You have to go through it. I hate to see somebody go through this, but this is a lesson they have to learn.
Mhm.
Like you said, we can't. Everybody's like, oh, well, then just predict the future, like you said. Just change it. If you know it, make things happen. It's not like that. It's not supposed to be like that. And those who say they can, I question you. Because
Yeah.
I've been there, and that's not how that works.
Because we get the messages because we're supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
110%. When I push that motherfucker out, I had every want in the world to banish its ass, and I told you I know how.
Oh, yeah.
But
And I wanted to. The second you said I know how, I'm like, oh gosh, let's do this right now.
yeah.
Let's put the smack down on this thing.
And then I got that message and I was like, oh. I was like, God damn it. Why
I
did
really
really?
could have done that and it would have been gone and everybody had been okay. But
Yeah.
and I hate to say it, but there's a ton of things like this out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to be very careful now on things. So I think of, feel, and do, and the second I start to feel different, I'm definitely going to talk to you first.
Well, and the thing too is like, the thing that I hate and what I'm actually wondering now is I remember when we dealt with your spirit that was sticking around, I figured that you would start drawing, maybe not completely immediately, but you would start drawing again and painting again. And I would hear this message from you where you were like, I'm back. You know what I mean?
I didn't.
And I never got that. And I really hope my utmost want is to be able to hear that from you. And that's only going to come. Well, it's true. Like that's only going to come.
Love you.
Like, I love you, too.
I love you.
It's only going to come when you heal. And I feel like as you're healing, more stuff is going to come to you. And we talked about it, like, this is why, you know, I said, make sure that you rub your paste on all the doors because you're going to have other stuff that's happening. And it's very easy to be like, wait, what is this? Like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
Like, break out the gloves. I'm ready to box. Like, and I don't want you to have that concern.
That's what I did when my stove burst on fire.
Well, I still think that your stove bursting on fire wasn't exactly normal.
Like, I can't make this up, guys. I sent her a picture of my melted stove. Like,
yeah,
this happened.
And I'm over here like, my theory continues.
My house just caught on fire. What? What did you say? Here you go. Look at that. Ironic, but I did.
And it really did. The whole fucking knob was melted into the stove.
I went Wonder Woman, ripped that sucker out of the wall. I was getting ready to throw the stove outside my home like Wonder Woman. And yeah, oh my goodness. But it was the timing of it. I was sitting down and I love notes. And I said, like, I've had a lot of hard time keeping up with my own timeline on this. And that's weird. Mm-hmm. I've always been proud of myself on how I can memorize things and whatnot. And things were slipping my mind. Again, I was losing time. So I was writing this down when my stove just went poof. So that was just interesting. But yeah, I could make this up even if I wanted to.
The fun stuff that happens. Fun stuff.
Oh gosh, are you serious? We were saying a fire cleanse, but not a real fire.
Oh, yeah, that's the other thing we didn't talk about. So, okay, people. So I, ever since this whole situation, all I have wanted to do is cleanse with fire. Just cleanse with fire, cleanse with fire. And I'm typically a cleanse with water type of girl. Mm-hmm. And when I explained to you how said little thingamabobber is going to end up disappearing, I told you it has to be buried. And because it won't be able to escape that place, it's just going to get essentially lonely and more lonely and more lonely, and then it'll just disappear on its own. And that's how it will end up not being able to touch anybody else. So that's earth, and I like to cleanse with water, so it makes no sense that fire came into the mix. And I was just like, don't know why this keeps happening, but I could just keep thinking about everything going up in flames and fire. Like, that's just...
fire.
Yeah, then your stove caught on fire.
Actual flame in my home. Oh my gosh, we didn't mean literally. And it's funny, I have a fireplace too. It's constantly going. I'm like, wrong area. You're contained in there. You're supposed to be there.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you though. I feel like, so this was shadow season and this thing stayed with you and it didn't let you heal. So you've got 20 something odd days to do like a shit ton of healing.
No, I gotta like go into super mode.
Well, but that's the thing is like, I feel like stove was step number 1. It was like, hey, here's a warning. You need to like make sure that like you do all your shit. And then I told you, so your mythical creature that you're about to get is a Chimera. That's what is coming through. Because you've been through a lot and you have to get your like force and fire back. And you, for some, what sign are you?
I'm a Pisces. I'm the fish.
No, so you shouldn't need water, or you shouldn't need fire. But
No.
for some reason, like, that's like coming in
Fire
really
at
strong
all.
that you need it.
But
So,
I mean, I'm okay with that. Just not on my stove or on my carpet,
yeah,
you know,
you know,
in my walls, candles and fireplaces.
the universe does not care.
No, it really, really does. I mean, and I can't explain to you guys how freaking weird this was. Like, what my son's training to be an electrician. So the second he got in the house, I made him look at my stove like, you're lucky you even came home to a house. Check this out. And the only thing he can figure is it wasn't turned off all the way and it was going bad to begin with. And the actual on and off knob, the electric that runs to that caught on fire, or it wasn't off all the way, and the stove got hot, and eventually got so hot it melted, or there was grease on. We don't know. Like, we have so many theories, but really, I'm just gonna go with "Way to go, universe." Thanks for that wake up call. I didn't like fire, but thanks for that. Oh my goodness. It's like one of those days. Oh, please. It's been like one of those half a years.
Yeah. And you're like, I'm not gonna lie, you're gonna have some hard times.
Oh yeah, and I'm used to that, but I'm like at the same time, I don't have that yucky, grimy feeling
Yes.
gritting over me, and I didn't realize it was until it was gone. And whoo, it feels pretty darn good.
Good.
Feels good.
Well, if there was like one thing that you really want to happen for you right now, and I mean like specifically for you, over this like whole, because you lost a lot. You lost time, you lost parts of yourself, you lost your creativity, you lost a lot. If there is one thing that like you had a wish for right now to gain back and to work on, what would that thing be?
Oh, that's a great question. Honestly, I really want my imagination back. And I know that sounds weird, but I'm a creative person and I miss that. I'm used to sitting in bed at night and thinking of stories and pictures and just stuff. I mean, it's like a muse not being able to muse anymore. And I miss that a lot. I miss like, oh, that's a great idea. Oh, that's a great idea. Oh, I'm going to do that in a couple months. And I miss that spark. That spark kind of makes up me as I am. I've always lived in my imagination. It's my meditative place. It's where I can go and not really go anywhere. So I miss that. I miss that connection with my inner self because that is a very deep, your imagination is a very deep connection to your subconsciousness. They are almost one and the same, but not. And when those two are severed, you lose part of yourself, your personality, your inner thoughts. They all don't connect like they should. And I miss that. I want that back. I can't, like you said, I love to draw. I love to be creative. I'm from a very creative family. It's kind of what I grew up around. So to not have that is like a fish without water. It's like not swimming. It's like, oh my goodness, I need to go do this because it's what I do. And yeah, I miss that. I miss that a lot.
I really want to hear, and I'm just like looking forward to this moment, and I have like a lot of hope in my heart, so I know it's coming. But I can't wait to hear you be like, oh my God, I could draw something. Oh my God, I feel like my imagination's back. I feel like myself.
I can't wait. I miss that. Can't wait to be at peace.
And we're back. I hope that you liked the episode. I hope that you learned something from it. Like I said earlier, there are just things that we don't know what they're called. If you open up the big long book of paranormal entities, you're not going to find them in there. And that's the thing about the paranormal, is there is no box. So there are multitudes of things that you can discover that you never thought could exist. And this is just one of them. I'm very happy that Laura is not being affected by this thing anymore. And when we recorded this episode, it was back in December. And obviously now we're in February, almost March. She seems to be doing a lot better. She seems to have a little bit of a lighter sense to her. And I'm just very happy to see that in her. I know that she had been doing some wild creative things. And I was very, very happy to hear when she started working on her art again, and especially all the things that she had gone through and some of the things that the universe sort of forced her into directly after this. But I am very happy that she seems to be doing better, and I want her to continue that way. I know that we mentioned that there is someone else out there who this thing is unfortunately meant for, and the reason why is for them to stop denying themselves what they have in their gifts. And that's really hard because, just as she said, I don't want anyone to have to go through this. However, it's not up to me. And the universe has plans for everyone, and I appreciate the fact that the universe shared that plan with me. And I know that it will benefit this person in the long run and affect them in a proper and good way. But it does, for lack of a better word, suck that they're going to have to go through it. I hope, though, that this episode teaches you that if you feel wrong, if you are suffering from mood swings that you never had before, if you find yourself being depressed and you don't understand why, pay attention to yourself. That is very important. That's something we harp on, because if you don't, how are you supposed to pay attention to things around you? So that's it for the episode. We do have a little bit of news to discuss. The first thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about is that I posted the information for the workshop. It's up on the website, thehauntedride.com. It's also in the episode show notes, so you can just click it from there if that's easier for you. And also, if you are a part of our newsletter, it's going to be one of the first things you'll see is that the workshop's up and how to get some information. It's also going to be on the social media. The workshop is going to be on March 21st, which is the day of spring, at 2 p.m. So I'm very excited. It's about accepting love and accepting love into your life, loving yourself, understanding what you need out of love, understanding what your fears are when it comes to love, and just how to embrace that, embrace yourself in love for you. So yeah, I do hope to see you guys there. Another thing is we have a lot of new tarot card readings up on the site. I decided to go ahead and change the store. I was using a store on the actual website, but it limited me to the amount of products that I could put in the plan that I was in, which at first I was like, oh, it's not really going to matter, like that'll be fine. But then when I wanted to like expand all the spiritual services, it was like, no. And I was like, I don't want to be limited. So I have officially moved the store itself over to Etsy. So the website is still thehauntedride.com. And then if you click on the store, it will take you to a store on Etsy. It also allows me to put up discounts and promo codes, and kind of opens like a whole brand new door as far as like the store and the shop go and the things that I can offer to you guys. So that is there. And lastly is just what I've learned. So February has just been a month of learning for me. Been a lot of things that I've learned and lessons that I've really needed to understand, because no matter how long you do this and how deeply you're doing this and how many guides you talk to, the reason why is because you still have lessons to learn. You always have lessons to learn. That never ends or stops at all. And today, actually, the lesson that I learned, and I literally just wrote this down in my journal, and then I did a new moon tarot card reading and I got it there. And I thought I had seen this card before, and when I did my 2019 birthday tarot card reading, which from today, on the day of your birth, through to the next year of your birth, these are the things that you can expect to happen. And the thing that I finally learned is that I do way too much. I really do. Every single time that I think of a new project, I used to not do them because I was like, okay, well, let's honestly plan this out. 1, do I have time to do this? 2, do I know if I'm really going to like it, with the amount of time? Let's say it's going to take me 6 months to do this. in 6 months, am I still going to like this idea? Am I still going to enjoy this project? Or is it just going to be wasted effort and work? And so I would honestly hold myself back from a lot of things because of that, because I said, okay, well, I know how I am. And how I am is if I decide that I am going to do something, I put 150% of my effort into that thing. I don't quit until it's completed, whether I like it or I don't. And that's not entirely healthy. I'll explain why. The first reason, and what I wrote down in my bullet journal today, and what my actual tarot card reading came up with too, is why do I do this? Why do I feel like I have to dedicate so much to these things? And it's because when I was younger, anytime I would do a project, it was with someone who was a perfectionist. And she would look at me and she would say, you're not doing enough, or you can't do this well enough, or you can't whatever. And every time I heard that, I just wanted to try harder. I wanted to try harder to please this person. And that never really happened, no matter what I did. And so along the lines and along the path of my journey, I've come to this realization that for this person, projects are stable. You begin it, you progress in it, you complete it. You're done. That's not how projects work for me. I begin it, I progress in it, and then in the middle of it, I may get a brand new idea. I may say, hey, you know what? This actually was a really great idea, but I wonder if I can just slightly tweak this one thing and see what happens. And it may be amazing, it may not. However, every single time that you kind of touch those little knobs and you tweak it and you play around with it just to, see if it works the way that you want it to, or if you can come up with this, you can make it do this brand new idea that you just came up with, that is time and effort. But I don't give myself credit for that. I just go, okay, so I did this thing. And then let's say that, I hate it and it completely is horrible. And then I revert it back to how it used to be. Well, I now have no record that I did any of this, but it may have taken me 5 hours to do. And I'm just like, oh my God, where did the day go? Well, Melissa, you just spent 5 hours working on this thing. Where do you think it went? But I don't give myself that acknowledgement of the time and effort I just put into this thing. Because I was so gung-ho to try it, and I put so much of myself into it, and 100%, that when I don't see it, I just go, oh, well then what have I been doing? And that's where it's just not healthy. It's okay to have a bunch of projects if you're going to come back to them and finish them. It's okay to turn around and say, hey, you know what? I really liked this project, but I think that it's not really what I wanted or how I wanted it to be. Maybe let's start over. Maybe just let's stop it for now and pick it up later, or just stop it completely. It's okay to do those things. There's nothing wrong with that. When it becomes wrong is when you're doing it in this almost desperation sort of way where you don't look at yourself. You don't think about your self-care. Maybe you miss a meal. Maybe you are spending more money that you don't have. Maybe you are coming home every night exhausted after this project and you don't feel fulfilled at all. And that's when you need to stop. So today I just learned that I do a lot. I do way too much. And I come up with brilliant and amazing and creative and imaginative ideas, and I am very grateful for that. But if I'm going to do the idea, I need to acknowledge the time and effort I put into it and say that that's okay. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. That's fine. But I can't look back at myself and then be like, oh my God, I wasted this much time, or what have I been doing all day? That's not good. That's harmful to your self-care and your mind, really. So I'll leave you with this little part of the card that came up earlier in today's reading and last year for me in my tarot card reading. And my birthday is in June, so I've got about 3 months left before I'll do another one of these. So it's sort of funny because this is number 12 in the reading, and it is the overall path for next year, the 10 of Wands. That I'll have more responsibility, that I need to manage my time to keep myself healthy, that I'll have a lot of completion of my tasks, achievements, of goals, but those goals will bring more responsibility, and I have to be cognizant of that. And that if I need to, it's time for me to delegate. So hopefully someone out there, if you need to hear that, I hope you take those actions. Apart from that, have yourself an amazing day and a great and beautiful night. Take care of yourselves out there and be safe. Love yourselves and love others. And as we always like to say, especially in this episode, don't let the ghost get you. Bye.